On Personally Speaking this week, our guest is Rosanna Scotto, an amazing and talented anchor out of New York City. Stay with us. Hello and welcome to Personally Speaking. I'm your host, Msgr Jim Lisante, and Rosanna Scotto joins me now. Rosanna is the co-host of Good Day New York. She's been a member of the WNYW-Fox 5 News in New York City since 1986. Rosanna is a graduate of Catholic University in Washington, D.C. She began her career in television as a reporter for WTBS in Atlanta. She returned to her native New York in the early 1980s as a reporter for ABC's Good Morning New York, which eventually became live with Regis and Kathy Lee. After a year with Good Morning New York and The Morning Show, Rosanna joined WABC TV's Eyewitness News as a reporter, where she remained until she joined Fox 5. Rosanna has won 3 Emmys for anchoring Fox 5's News at 10 and Good Day New York. She's been married since 1986 to her husband, Louis Ruggiero, and they're the parents of 2 adult children, Jenna and Louis, LJ. Rosanna and her sister, Elena, have written a new book called Meatballs, Manja, and Memories, which celebrates 30 years of her family's famed restaurant, Fresco by Scotto in New York City. She's here with us today to tell us about her career, her family, and the faith and values that matter the most to her. Joining me now, I'm so pleased to welcome to Personally Speaking, Rosanna Scotto. We're here with Rosanna Scotto. She is an amazing newswoman with Fox for many, many years. Here's my question, which I'm sure one way or another you've been asked before, but you're not just this newswoman, this anchor. You're also a wife and a mother, and you have a family business. The question always is asked, usually of women, unfortunately, can you really have it all? How in the world have you, for many, many years, juggled the amazing demands placed on you both at home and at work?
Monsignor, first of all, so nice to see you. Thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast.
Thank you.
Not easy.
Yeah.
Even at this point, my kids are adults.
Yeah.
And, it's just not easy. There are days that everything seems to work out fine, and other days you're dealing with family issues, and that's really first and foremost on your mind.
Yeah.
And a lot of days I'm just praying, like, I'm like, God, I'm in your hands. Help me get through this right now.
Yeah. Okay. Now, part of what you do though is you have the help, hopefully, of your family. Tell me about the family that formed you. When you look back at the way your parents raised you, at the way your family grew, what did they do right in making you the person you are today, Rosanna?
Well, I think the first thing that they did was they made me feel confident and loved.
Okay.
No matter the circumstances, no matter, if I did something wrong, I always felt that like I had support. And as you know, in this crazy business of TV news, there's a lot of ups and downs. We go on the air, we pretend we have no problems going on in our lives.
Right.
And, we do our jobs every day, but, there's a lot of propping up that goes. And my parents always were really there when the times got rough, and they led me to believe it would be all right. And you know what? I believed them.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here today.
Because of the faith they had in you, the confidence, and also the encouragement they gave you. Before I go to do a funeral or wedding or baptism, I may wake up on the wrong side of bed. And my general rule is leave me alone for the first 15 minutes. Let me have a cup of tea and I'll be better. But like, Rosanna, you are amazing in that you put forth, as you say, maybe sometimes you have to force it, but you put forth this joy, this upbeat spirit. Everyone in New York feels like they know your person because you're such a friendly person. But what about those days when you don't have a joyful heart and there's problems on your mind? How do you make the turn where you're able to say, but for the public, I have to go positive?
So my husband says I'm very good at putting everything in compartments.
Okay.
So I may be a wreck until I get on the air at 7 a.m.
Okay.
But when I get on the air at 7 a.m., most people don't really want to know someone else's problems. They ask you how you're doing. Everybody says fine. You don't really get into it. There's not that real question like, what's going on in your life? You don't look good today. You look sad. Whatever it is, most people really don't want to know. And so I feel like when I go on the air, I have a very specific job to inform and hopefully entertain you at the same time, make you forget your problems. And I think I'm pretty good at putting everything in compartments and then dealing with whatever issues are facing me that day personally once I get off the air.
Okay, that's good. And you talked for a moment ago about your job is to give people the news. So let's go off of that for a second. And I know there's a sense out there that people are choosing the news program they want if it happens to match their particular ideological point of view. So you're a big old liberal, you go to MSNBC. You're conservative, you go to Fox or Newsmax or one of those people. What I think in the long run is it doesn't necessarily help us to trust in the news business, because I like to believe, like I did in Walter Cronkite, that he's going to give it to me straight. Do you find that you can give the news without bias, or is it a natural inclination to say, well, this is how I see it, so I'm going to make it the news as I see it?
Well, we struggle. First of all, Good Day New York is a local station.
Right.
And so we have to basically be good to our community, which most people in our community are liberal in the New York City area.
Right.
So we really, really try to give it down the middle. But I will tell you, when I have politicians, I definitely try to question both sides. Today, I had Congressman Richie Torres on, and he was talking about, the Republicans being in power now, and all they're going to want to do is go after Biden and his personal life. And I said, well, didn't you do that with President Trump when he was in office? Like, for the first few years, like, all we thought about was Russian collusion, and we thought about the Steele dossier, which we learned years later there was no teeth to it. Right. So I think the bottom line is that you have to really push both sides with the politicians. All of them are the same, really, whether when you take away the liberal label or the conservative label, they're all the same, and they all need to be kind of pushed and prodded and just made to know that you are watching them and that they better do the right thing for the American public.
Now, let me give you a loaded question for an anchor who has to deal with these various aspects of personality and politics. So one of the guys who comes to my church for mass from time to time, and he's someone who I talk to, is Congressman Santos. Now, if he was a guest on your show, how would you handle him, Rosanna?
Well, he's been on our show twice, but before all this stuff came out about him.
Right. Okay.
We certainly didn't know all the web of lies. I mean, he's admitted to some of these lies now, including, his background, his religion, where he went to school, on and on. And now I think I would probably take a different approach if he came on our show. At the time, I didn't know too much about him. And so I could only question him about what was out there in the media. And now, obviously, would be a different approach. I mean, not so much about his, whether he's gay, straight, drag, trans, whatever he is. It's just, what are you going to do? How do we have faith in you? Because you've lost us with some of the things that you said that you are. And I think credibility is a big, big issue with him now.
Rosanna, that one of the other responses from the people on his side has been that whether it's President Trump or President Biden, that there's a whole lot of people who stretch the truth in politics. How is he different, or how is his situation worse?
You're right. I mean, let's face it. All politicians lie. They lie to get into office. And then, who knows whether they'll ever, follow up on their campaign promise. But in this particular case, it just seems like there's so many lies. And then, people coming out and saying, accusations of that he swindled them out of money, and where is the money that, he got for this campaign. I mean, I think that there are a lot of valid issues that are concerning with
Yeah.
Mr. Santos, with Congressman Santos.
Okay, now he has to figure out his own way of presenting himself to the public. Let me switch teams here for a second. As a person who communicates very effectively, as you do, and knows how to put a message across, I got to ask you, for the past 20 to 30 years, our church has, in some cases because of its own fault, taken a real beating. Now, if I'm asking you, hey, can you guide the church in terms of how do we better sell our message? How do we get back on top of the game? And we've mishandled lots of stuff like the scandals, and there's lots of people who, because of that, won't have anything to do with the church. If I'm saying to you, Rosanna, you're a communicator, how can we better communicate what's good about the church? What do you say?
Well, I think some of the issues that I think it would be good if the church was more forthcoming and not hiding the fact that there are a few bad apples.
Yeah.
And there are a few bad apples in every profession, in every walk of life. And obviously, it kind of shakes our faith when we hear about these things. But I think that if we admit that that has been a problem in the past, and that things are being taken care of for the future, that our kids are safe going to school, being an altar boy, whatever, I think that would be comforting. And I think that you would have more people coming back to church. I think it shook a lot of people to hear about all that.
Sure, absolutely. And you're right. It's the most authoritative source says that 96% of the priests are good guys who've never hurt a kid. But we're all tarred by that 4% brush, and maybe highlighting the fact that the 96% is still out there doing the best job they can. Now, for those who don't know, Rosanna Scotto, since 1986, I think if I got the right year, got herself hitched to a wonderful guy. But I got to ask you, back then, what was your perception of marriage and him as opposed to here we are in 2023?
Well, it's funny because it was very traditional approach back in 1986. Okay. Even though I was a career woman, there was a certain amount of I still came home, made dinner, I kept the house. I still did the traditional roles of, a mom at home. I see now with the younger generation, how they approach it, how there's more of a split responsibility. And I would hope my daughter would be able to juggle that, when she finds the right person. But it was definitely a more traditional marriage. I mean, it's still traditional,
Yeah.
My husband definitely takes more of a responsibility in what takes place in our house. But, for the most part, I'm working, and then, the food's in the refrigerator and the clothes are clean and everything's working. The light bulbs are here, and, all the things that make a house a home.
For folks who may or may not know, like every family, you've had moments of a challenge. And I remember a few years ago, one of your kids got in a little bit of trouble, but I thought to myself, all of our families have somebody who gets in trouble, but it doesn't end up on the evening news or in the newspapers. Did you, when people were coming after you about your kids, didn't you wonder, what the heck am I doing in public life when I can't even have a private life?
I did. And
Yeah.
I knew that I would be okay. I was afraid that my son, who, has made mistakes,
Sure.
was making them in the public eye. And he needed more help than discouragement. And it was something that we really had to work very hard and diligently as a family to let him know that it would be okay, that he was young, he made mistakes, and he will get through it. I mean, the problem is, with Google and everything else, his mistakes are the first things that come up.
Right,
And
right.
mine kind of get my mistakes, and I've made plenty over the years too. They kind of get pushed down with all the other good, the good stuff that comes up can rise to the top a little bit.
Yeah.
Only because I'm still out there and working, and he's still young.
Yeah.
And so that kind of stuff, I think it's very difficult for young people to deal with. Social media, public perception.
There's no privacy. There's absolutely no privacy anymore. And well, I would think though, conversely, that, as I said to you before, Rosanna Scotto is everyone loves her, knows her. She's like the neighbor next door, the favorite aunt, the favorite sister. when a child of yours gets into any jam, I gotta believe that there are mothers out there who are thinking, "This is so wonderful that she's just like me."
Well, I hope so.
I
I
hope
hope
so
so.
too.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, they see me at work
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what's going through their mind as they see me at work. Like, how is she there? Like, how is she standing up? How
Yeah.
is she able to focus? All that stuff is a challenge.
Yeah.
It's very easy to kind of like put the covers over your head and just, want to kind of wallow in the
Mm-hmm.
moment. But then it doesn't send a good message to my son either,
Right.
or,
Right. Right.
my daughter. They have to
Okay.
learn how to deal with problems and how to fight through it.
Rosanna Scotto is also not just a mom and a wife, but she's also a daughter. So I got to ask you, I'm the caretaker for my 102-year-old mom. My dad's in heaven. Matter of fact, he went home 2005 today. But I mention that because the care of our elderly parents, it's a big responsibility. And then you lost your dad as I've lost mine. Time to mourn when you go through a sad time. Rosanna, what do you do with all that?
Well, it's been difficult.
Yeah,
I will tell you that.
yeah. That's funny. I get it. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I don't mean
And
to. Yeah.
and caregivers, as you know, are beautiful people.
Yeah. They're lifesavers for us. They really are. Um,
And, we've been taught to take care of our family. So
yeah. Yeah.
that's what we're doing.
Okay. All right, you mush. I'm gonna change topics to give you a
Sorry.
break.
Today,
Now,
particularly, is not a good day. My mother's kind of driving us crazy today. You have no idea.
and,
But
oh, I'm
that's
sorry.
it. She's she's a very strong-headed woman sometimes.
Well, that's probably a gift to you sometimes, and other times, not
Yes.
so much. Okay, to lighten things up for my friend Rosanna, one of the things that Rosanna does is she's not only going to work every day and raising a family, taking care of her mom, but she's also someone who gives back time and time again in charitable ways. And I'm hearing that with my good old friend Jim Kerr, something you guys involving with heart shares.
Yes.
Tell me
Yes.
about that. Tell me
Well,
about that.
Heart Share Human Services is a wonderful organization. They're based in Brooklyn. They deal with foster kids and those who have developmental problems. And I've been with them for 25 years.
Wow.
And
Okay.
it's just a beautiful organization. And I recently helped somebody get their son in there, and they can't thank me enough.
Wow.
Because this, once again, is finding the right place to care for someone who needs extra help.
Yeah.
And they're a great organization. We have the gala coming up at the end of May. We have at the end of March. Jim Kerr and I are the co-hosts of the evening. And it's just a great organization. I hope that some of your listeners will take a look at HeartShare Human Services. And if you have a few extra dollars, they could use it, because
Good.
They cared for those people during COVID. And you know how difficult that was. All of us were so nervous, but they stayed with those people and made sure that they were safe and healthy. And it was difficult, but they did it.
Now, Rosanna Scott is talking about the COVID time, the worst time. In addition to everything else this beautiful woman does, she also is a partner with her family in Fresco by Scotto, a great restaurant in Manhattan. What in the world happened to you guys during COVID? Did you stay open? Did you close? Tell us about it.
We closed. We had to close.
You did?
First of all, the city closed us down, basically.
Oh, okay.
And so we closed for a few months, that March of 2020. And then there was an opportunity to reopen, and we did in September of 2020. But, we're in Midtown Manhattan, and there was nobody at work.
Right.
There was nobody there. And the people who were living in Manhattan left. I mean, my apartment building, 75% of the people got out of town.
Yeah.
So there was no business. We wound up having to close it at the end of November 2020. Okay. And my sister and I said, if we had the opportunity to reopen it one more time, what would we do to make it different? We had to reimagine it. We had to make it a destination place. Right. We had to give people a reason to come to our area, because it was still very, very quiet. We reopened in June of 2021,
Okay.
We hired a party planner, Lauren Scott's Events,
Okay.
and we imagined it as going to Capri. We did a beautiful outdoors. We had lemon trees. We still have the lemon trees and lights. And we brought in a DJ, and we have a DJ Tuesday through Saturday. And we realized that people at that point wanted to celebrate. They wanted to congregate. And we gave them this beautiful backyard in the middle of New York City streets to go and really to have a great meal, to forget about their problems, and hopefully be in a safe environment because they were outside, and to dance on the streets.
For those who haven't been to Fresco, one of the great selling points of it has always been that all that stuff is true, Rosanna, but it's also got great food. You still have great food?
Oh, our chef is terrific. Msgr, we're overdue for another dinner. We had an epic dinner one night.
We did indeed.
It was fun.
with the famous Msgr Franco as the star of the meal. He's amazing. What an amazing Msgr he is, you know.
He's so fun.
Now let's talk completely different. For those who don't know, Rosanna Scotto herself is also the product of not just her career and her family, but of some Catholic education, and so are her kids. When you went back to Catholic school, why did you go? And what's the positive things that you got out of getting a Catholic education, including, by the way, for my listeners and watchers, a degree from Catholic University?
I did. So I started off at Visitation Academy in Brooklyn, which is a great, great school. If anybody lives in that area, please consider it because they're having a little problem with enrollment. But it's a gorgeous school with a great education. And I feel like, that was the beginning of the foundation. Not only learning arithmetic and, writing and all the things that you need to get by in life, but also having that Catholic foundation, that faith, which, keeps you steady when things get rough. It's a great comfort to know that I can always rely on my Catholic education. From Visitation Academy, I did go to Packer in Brooklyn, Packer Collegiate Institute, and then I went to Catholic University in DC. And Cardinal Dolan went there, and we were not there at the same time, and obviously not studying the same subjects, but but it was a wonderful, wonderful education, and it's a great school.
I think all people would agree who know you or watch you or listen to you that you seem to be who you are, and that's a wonderful thing. I think it's why people can relate to you. Is Rosanna's Rosanna? You don't feel that she changes accents when she gets off camera. This is who she is. She's a New Yorker through and through. I promise you I'm going to wrap it soon, but I got to ask you. Even today, I was going over the readings for Sunday, and St. Paul has this thing where he says, "Stop talking about I'm with St. Paul or I'm with Apollo. We're all with Christ." Okay, I mentioned that because in the church, we have lots of division. You're liberal, you're conservative. It's all a lot of nonsense. You're either with Jesus. That's at the heart of it. But also in our country, we're so divided. It's just amazing to me how divided we are. You're a Trump person. You're a Biden person. Do you have hope that this country and this world can pull it together and finally find a way to be people who love and honor and respect other people who don't have the same point of view? We had a guy last week who was the chaplain for George Bush, the first George Bush. And he talked about Tip O'Neill, Speaker of the House, Democrat, when Reagan got shot, going and kneeling next to him and saying a prayer for him, kissing him on the head. And I thought to myself, I can't even imagine now a member of one party going to kiss the other one's president on the head or saying a prayer for him. How do we get back to being the unified people in the church and in the country that we should be? And are you a person of hope who thinks we can?
I do hope so. I think it's going to be a while. I just think that we're so divided right now. I mean, I've been at parties where people start arguing with one another. Even in our family home, we would be like, this is a no politics zone. Nobody bring up anything. Nothing, not allowed. And my dad was a very, a staunch Democrat. And when there were election times, we shared this house to get a house out on Long Island together. And we would leave political flyers under each other's pillows just to kind of like spice things up. It was all we were joking and having fun with one another. But I do think that everybody has gotten so serious about it. And really, we're really all on the same side. We want a better world for our kids. We want a better world to live in. We want peace. We want harmony.
Yeah.
We want our health. I just don't see it like tomorrow happening, but I do foresee it in the future. We just need one leader who's going to do that. And I don't see him yet. Do
No,
you?
I keep hoping for, in my time, in my lifetime, it was Ronald Reagan who somehow or another could pull it all together. And even if you didn't agree with his policies, you love the man. And I would love to have all of us loving our president again, whoever that would be. But maybe there's another one down the pike. I agree with you. The leadership is so important. And unfortunately, our leaders seem sometimes to be so bomb throwing, divisive. And, there was a bill this past week in Congress, and it just so disturbed me. All the resolution said was that no one should firebomb or vandalize Catholic churches because they happen to be pro-life. And every Democrat voted against that bill except one guy, Gonzalez in Texas. And I thought to myself, if there was a resolution saying, don't bomb a synagogue, don't bomb a mosque, I hope to God that they'd be unanimously against that. But the idea that we're so divided, or the perception of the country is so divided that people would vote against, let's pass a resolution saying, don't firebomb a Catholic church. It breaks my heart. I'm just so sad with that kind of division. I hope you're right, that there's someone out there who can lead us out of the division and give us a spirit of hope again. Whether you know it or not, Rosanna, you give me a whole lot of hope. I love watching you because you have a positive, wonderful, life-giving spirit, and you are someone we can all relate to. So thank you for what you do as an anchor. Thank you for the many years in the news business, and thank you for just remaining the normal, warm, lovely, wonderful, giving person that you are. You give me great hope.
Well, Monsignor, first of all, thank you. You made me feel so much better. And thank you for your leadership, because you are a wonderful shepherd and you've gotten us through some tough times. And we look up to you. We look for your guidance and your comforting words, and we appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Rosanna. And we will dine soon, okay? Because I hear the food is great there.
Oh, we're due. We're overdue for a dinner.
Rosanna Scotto has been our guest. I thank you for coming on Personally Speaking. Love and prayers and blessings to your family, Rosanna.
Thank you, Monsignor.
As we end today's program, I want to thank you all for being with us. If you need to contact me, you can reach me at personallyspeakingpodcast@gmail.com. Any shows you want to see or watch, you can go to YouTube and search under Personally Speaking with Monsignor Jim Lisante. Watch the shows and please hit like and subscribe. We're also on Facebook at Personally Speaking with Monsignor Jim Lisante. We're also now on Instagram at Personally Speaking Podcast. I'm privileged to serve as host and executive producer of Personally Speaking. Our producer is Lisa Jandovitz. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be with you again next time on Personally Speaking.